Before I start this video, I just want to mention that the person I'm responding to is political. They talk about a lot of political issues, but the video that I'm responding to is apolitical. I don't really do politics on this channel, so without further ado, let's start the video. So the person I'm responding to is known as Classically Abby, or Abigail Shapiro. She talks about a wide variety of things, some political, some apolitical, but I'm focusing on the video about self-care, which she called trash. I said I wouldn't be political, but a lot of conservatives believe that there is one objective definition to everything. Like, for example, self-care, when it depends on the person, you can define it in multiple ways. So let's just get into the video before this intro gets too long.
I don't know about you, but in the past few years, I feel like the term self-care has become a huge part of the vernacular, has become something that everybody wants to talk about. And here's the thing, I'm not against the idea of self-care.
I mean, the title says otherwise, but I'm not going to respond too much before she actually makes a point.
I'm against the idea of what self-care has now come to mean. In the same way that I'm against the idea of female empowerment meaning something that I totally disagree with. Do I think that the words female and empowerment can go together? Absolutely. Do I agree with how they're used nowadays? Not so much. The same definitely goes for the two words self and care.
So before I elaborate on what I think the definition of self-care is, I'm going to let Abby say what she thinks it means.
But self-care nowadays does not really mean what it says. In today's day and age, when you use the term self-care, it evokes an image of a woman who is kind of neglecting any of the other things that need to happen. She says, everyone needs to be put on hold. I need to deal with myself right now. I'm gonna have my glass of wine and watch my TV show and take a bath and take care of myself. That isn't really self-care. Self-care should be preventative.
I agree that self-care should be preventative, part of it at least, because she seems to think throughout the video that this is the only definition of self-care, which is pretty problematic because it's not really true. Self-care can be preventative, and it can also be dealing with something in the moment. I'm not sure what the word for that is. Sometimes you just have to deal with things in the moment. You can't prevent everything. Like, let me pose a hypothetical related to like medical practices. So let's say I don't want to get sick. I don't want to fall ill. Things you could do is, like, the most prominent one is getting a vaccination, which definitely helps. That's one of the main things you can do. Also, like washing your hands and practicing good hygiene. Those are the main preventative actions that you could take to avoid getting sick. However, this isn't the only medical care. Like, for example, you can't really prevent yourself from falling ill every time. Like, you're gonna get sick sometimes, and it's not even your fault. You could take some prescription medicine, like prescription drugs that the doctor gives to you, which would be very helpful to alleviate the symptoms. And that's another type of self-care because you're caring for yourself.
If you take care of yourself regularly, then you won't need nights off for self-care. Now, is that always true? No, of course there are certain days that we have that are just crazy, and at the end of it, you want to just chill out and relax. But making the idea of this kind of self-care a really frequent thing, instead of dealing with the stuff that could actually keep you feeling calm and collected and more ready to take on the day, is to the detriment of women everywhere.
I don't like the use of the word instead, because that implies that you can either do one or the other. Like, drinking wine and watching TV is not self-care when it, in fact, helps alleviate stress. Not for me personally, because I don't drink alcohol, but there are a plethora of different methods to alleviate stress. And she said that actually make you calm and collected. You can't really determine what makes one person calm or collected. Everybody has different methods. Like, for example, extroverts typically like to go out and talk to people. That helps them, like, alleviate stress, and they feel good in that environment. However, introverts are different. They like to remain in a secluded area to be alone with their thoughts. For me at least, because I'm definitely an introvert, and that's what really helps me calm down.
Because what really ends up happening is that you don't deal with underlying issues. You just kind of stick a bandaid on a gaping wound by drinking a little bit of wine and watching a stupid TV show and taking a night of self-care instead of taking care of yourself regularly.
So this analogy is not very good, a band-aid in a gaping wound, because in this instance, some little things can actually help a lot. So a band-aid can heal a gaping wound in this situation. Like watching TV or just taking a day off for yourself is actually very helpful. She keeps saying instead. It's not exclusive. You can do both.
Self-care should mean taking care of yourself and really taking the time to figure out how you're going to be able to handle everyday life. Instead, it has come to mean restorative care, this idea that I need to take care of myself after the fact. You don't want to let things snowball out of control until the point where you are so overwhelmed that you do need to take a night of self-care.
So a lot of the times that's not really possible. Some things will snowball like out of control, and there are different stressors that are more difficult to prevent than others. Like for example, let's say you get in an argument with like a sibling. A lot of times you can't really prevent that because it's almost inevitable. All you have to do in that moment is find something that calms you down. Just either think about something else or separate for a while, then you can come back later, because it does resolve the issue. Like, I don't hate, like for example, I get into arguments with my brother all the time, but I don't hate him. It's not constant stress because we're on good terms, obviously. We still talk to each other. We don't hate each other for arguing, because arguments happen. That's part of being siblings. So that type of self-care is actually very helpful with that type of situation.
The fact of the matter is that this idea of self-care doesn't ever really work. It doesn't encourage young women to actually take care of themselves regularly. Instead, it just says, when you're feeling upset or overwhelmed, instead of dealing with the root of the problem, just kind of take a day off and indulge. Now, of course, as I mentioned, it's not to say that there aren't going to be times when we're overwhelmed, where the day just got the best of us and we want to take a night to de-stress. That happens to all of us, so that's not a terrible thing. But it shouldn't be that we generally are moving through life expecting to be overwhelmed and then dealing with that kind of feeling of being in a chaotic situation by then taking a night off for self-care and just ignoring any other responsibilities.
This is kind of circular logic. You say that taking the night off, which is a type of self-care, by the way, is not inherently bad, but you call that type of self-care trash. I don't really understand it. And you state it's not the actual way to take care of yourself. It's just feels like backpedaling and flip-flopping. It's just maintain a certain position.
So in this video, I think I want to delineate the idea of self-care from taking care of yourself. I want to say that taking care of yourself is what we should be aiming for, and self-care is the bad version of that, where you're not really dealing with what you need to deal with to be able to take on the world.
Why delineate these terms when they mean the exact same thing? You use them interchangeably in your title. Self-care is not good. Here's 5 ways to actually take care of yourself. So you're saying that this isn't the way to take care of yourself, or self-care. This is the way to take care of yourself. So it's just, you're using them interchangeably, but now you're saying that they can't be used interchangeably. So you've basically debunked yourself. You said that the actual definition for self-care is preventative, but you called self-care trash. So I don't get it. You said that's not actually self-care. This is self-care. Self-care is garbage. This is just a confusing argument. It feels like you're just canceling out your own arguments. This is just a really confusing talking point that it feels like she can't make up her mind.
Today, I want to share with you 5 tips that I have for real self-care, for taking care of yourself. So let's get into it.
Now you're using them as synonyms again. Wow, what is happening? She's flip-flopping so much. Now that we got to the entree, or the salad, you could say, of the video. Let's get to the meat.
Number 1 is to make time for yourself each and every day. Now, I know so many of us are so busy. We've got work, we have kids, we have school. There's a million things that we have to do every single day that it feels crazy to even ask for just 10 minutes for yourself. But if you think about it, 10 minutes is really not that long. So if you can work into your schedule 10 minutes every day that is just for you, it will make a huge difference to your mental health.
Now you're advocating for something that you deemed detrimental, but just decreasing the time to 10 minutes, taking time off for yourself. A day and 10 minutes, it's not really much of a difference when it comes to de-stressing. Like, taking a day off is not neglecting responsibilities. You're confusing, like, being lazy and not doing anything to just de-stressing. It's just, those are two different things.
If that means waking up a little bit earlier before everyone else in the house wakes up and making a little cup of coffee or tea and reading a book or doing something that calms you, reading the newspaper, whatever it is, that is a perfect way to take those 10 minutes and make it feel like your day is for you. It also doesn't have to be 10 minutes. If you can have a little bit more time, that's great too. If that means going to the gym and having just a little bit of alone time, or eating your lunch and reading while you eat, or reading a book, just taking a few minutes and spending some time alone.
Also, you're just replacing drinking wine and watching TV with, like, going to the gym. Like, this is just personal preference at this point. Like, the video should be called My Personal Preference for Enacting Self-Care.
Number 2 is get into a routine. Being without a routine is the first thing that will make you feel out of control and chaotic and make you feel like you need a night for self-care. Give yourself the blessing of a routine. I am telling you, it is such a huge game changer to have a little bit of structure in your day. Even if it's just the first 3 things of your day, just having that structure will make you feel calmer, because otherwise you're dealing with things as they get thrown at you, and that can be overwhelming for even the most calm person.
I agree that a routine is beneficial, if not essential, to maintaining a limited stress life, like, because you can't really have a stress-free life, which is the point I'm going to make. You can't eliminate stress from happening. You can't always prevent stress. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So you need to have other things that are not preventative. Otherwise, you're just going to have a stressful life. Like, for example, this is a personal example. I graduated from high school. I'm a graduating high school senior during the pandemic. Going into 12th grade and then having this drastic change in education, like going from in-school learning to fully remote learning, and it was a pretty fast change. That really stressed me out, and it's not like I couldn't do anything to prevent that, because I can't prevent COVID. I'm not God. So I had to adjust myself over a pretty long period of time, because it took a while for me to adjust. It varies depending on the person. But yeah, it was very stressful. And then going back to in-school learning partially, and then going into it fully, it's just like flip-flopping the schedule, and there was no... I get very stressed out when I don't have a set schedule. So yes, I agree that having a schedule is important, but some things are unexpected and you can't really prevent.
Number 3 is to take a bath or a luxurious shower at least once a week. So I know some people aren't big fans of baths. I am obsessed with taking baths. I absolutely love taking baths. So I am always a proponent. But if you're somebody who's kind of not a fan of taking a bath, then I also included just taking a long shower.
So this is personal preference. You even mentioned that some people dislike baths. It's like you're calling it trash, but it's just so opinionated. You're eliminating a certain definition of self-care, but you're reinforcing that definition at the same time. It doesn't make any sense. Like, this is literally part of the definition of self-care that you called trash, except you're just replacing drinking wine with taking a bath. I feel like I'm repeating myself and this video is getting pretty long, so let's move on to the final point, number 5.
The fifth and final way to take care of yourself regularly is pray.
Okay, Abigail Shapiro is religious, of course, and so this is personal preference. I'm an atheist, and so are many people, so praying to God would not work if you don't really believe in God.
Praying to God reminds us that we're really not in control of anything.
This right here just disproves the entire argument. Having a lack of control, like you can't control your actions, and will just make me personally more stressed, and a lot of people more stressed, because having your life in the hands of another person would just make me worried that they might do something negative with this. And also, how would you prevent something if it's in some other person's hands? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I just want to make something clear. This is not me making an atheist argument. It's not an argument against God. I'm not really going to have this discussion.
And one of the most calming things that you can do is recognizing that you're not the one who is making everything happen, that you have somebody else who you can turn to in times of need.
Like, you could turn to family, you could turn to friends, counselors, therapists. There's so many people that you can turn to. We already have something to turn to. We don't need to turn to God. Like, you can turn to people without feeling powerless and feeling like things are out of your control.
I think a lot of what self-care ends up being is this feeling of you need to numb your mind because it's racing, because you're just too stressed to think about it. So you drink alcohol or you watch dumb TV. And when you turn to God, you don't need to numb your mind. You just calm it.
Well, you're wrong about that. It's not numbing your mind. Distracting yourself and numbing your mind are two different things. Like, if you have many different stressors, you don't have to deal with all these stressors head on. Having a distraction is pretty important. So that's pretty much all I had to say about this. I will try to upload more content in a shorter period of time. So if you have any suggestions for the next topic, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.